Hello everyone, Jacquie Edwards here. My office is an absolute mess right now, so I am in basically our dining room. So I thought I would join you from here today because it's a lot easier than cleaning my office. So today I want to talk about client money protection. I've been getting loads of questions on this recently. So for those of you that don't know, client money protection came in as legislation earlier this year, earlier 2019. I think it was April or May, you officially needed to be registered for client money protection if you managed properties on behalf of somebody else. So if you were acting as a letting agent, basically. Now, what does this mean for your rent-to-rent business? Now, there's lots of people that say, "Oh, you don't need client money protection as a rent-to-renter," and there's people that say you do. So I fall into the camp that I think it's a lot easier to just do it if there's any question of whether you have to or not, and that way you don't risk having any problems later on. So so because not everybody knows what rent-to-rent is. Now, this law, all this legislation that comes out, it is not put together with the thought of rent-to-renters in mind. So most of the time, they're just thinking, okay, let's think about letting agents, and we want letting agents to, have a higher standard, so we're going to put these laws in place for letting agents. And they have no idea anything about rent-to-rent. Neither do the councils who are in charge of enforcing this legislation, neither do the judges who would be judging you if you ever got to court. They're not going to know the nitty gritty and everything about rent to rent. So if you got that far along and you were like, no, I'm not going to get client money protection, and you started kind of getting prosecuted and fines, not everybody's going to know the nuances of rent to rent like we do. So I think it's just easier to register. Yes, it does cost money. It is a cost of doing business. You can pay back your fees for client money protection with your first rent-to-rent deal. Like in the first month or two of your rent-to-rent, done. Client money protection paid for. So that's my opinion. Just get it. Now let's talk a little bit more about the details. So again, client money protection, what it does is it's basically an insurance scheme you're signing up for. And it will protect the landlord's money that's in your bank account and the tenant's money that's in your bank account. So when the tenant pays you a deposit, that deposit is in your bank account for an hour, a minute, a day before you register it with one of the deposit schemes. In that time period, it needs to be protected. So in case like that client or that tenant sent you a deposit and you went bankrupt that minute, that client money is protected. That's what the insurance scheme is there. That's what client money protection is for. It protects the landlord the same way. So when you collect money, so let's think of a normal letting agent. A normal letting agent will collect all the rent from the tenants. They will then send that money to the landlord. That time that they're holding that money from the tenants in their bank account before they send it to the landlord, that needs to be protected. So again, what was happening is like a letting agent would go bankrupt and they would spend that money on something else that really should have gone to the landlord. That money belongs to the landlord. The letting agent doesn't have, that's not their money. They're just collecting it from the tenants on behalf of the landlord. They'll take out like their 10% commission, but the money actually belongs to the landlord. So again, regulations kind of came in and said, all right, you need to have that money protected. So client money protection is an insurance scheme that you're paying for. And it also requires you to have that money set up into a specific type of bank account called a client deposit account. Again, that is just, you'll be able to go to your bank and talk to them about that. But what that does is it ring fences the money. So again, if you were to go bankrupt, that money is protected from your administrator. So the administrators would know this money is not part of this company, it's not part of the bankruptcy, and it would just go back to whoever it actually belongs to, the landlords, the tenants, whatever. So that's what the client money protection was set up to do. So again, how this works in practicality for a rent-to-renter. Now, both service accommodation and HMOs, I think you're going to be in the same boat. So with service accommodation, you don't have tenants. So for your guests, you won't have to register their deposits or anything. So client money protection does not impact you at all on the tenant side if you're doing service accommodation. It does impact everybody on the landlord side. Now, the big distinction is what type of contract you're using with your landlord. Are you using a management agreement or a commercial lease agreement. Now, a management agreement, and different people call these different things, but a management agreement is basically exactly the same thing as a letting agent uses. It says you are managing the property on behalf of the owner. Now, if you are using a contract that's exactly the same as what a letting agent uses, you are a letting agent for all intents and purposes as a result, as it relates to this and any other law. So if you are a letting agent with, even if it's just with that one specific landlord that you're using a management agreement for, then you need to be registered for client money protection. Again, whether that's service accommodation or HMOs, you are holding that landlord's money. So when you collect the rent from the tenants, that is not your money when you're using a management agreement. That is the landlord's money that you're collecting on their behalf. You take out, your commission, or you take out, the money for the bills and all of that stuff, and you take out your profit and you hand the rest over to the landlord. So even if you've agreed, Mr. Landlord, I will pay you £1,000 a month, as soon as that money from the tenants hits your account, that £1,000 a month is the landlord's money, and it needs to be protected by client money protection insurance, and it needs to be held in a client deposit account. That is if you are using a management agreement. Now, if you are using a commercial lease agreement, there is an argument to say that you are the landlord in this situation. And as the landlord, you are managing your own property, so you don't need client money protection insurance. Now, that is quite a bit of a little nuance, because again, like I mentioned at the beginning, the council will probably not understand the nuance or the difference between a management agreement and a commercial lease agreement. A judge probably isn't going to care that much, because this is not a big deal case to that judge. So if you start to have problems and you're trying to explain to the council that, well, I'm using a commercial lease agreement, so I don't have blah, 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 that's just causing you a whole lot more work and effort and headache than if you just sign up for client money protection and get it done. So again, technically, if you have a commercial lease agreement, you really don't need client money protection. And when you read on the client money protection websites that they don't cover rent-to-renters, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about rent-to-renters in the sense of the ones that are using commercial lease agreements. Okay? So they're not talking about rent-to-renters that are using management agreements, because that's a letting agent. Even if you call yourself a rent-to-renter and you're using a management agreement, you are just a letting agent. And that means you need to follow all the rules that a letting agent has to follow. That's another big tick of why I prefer to use a commercial lease agreement whenever possible, because it gives you just that little bit more flexibility. But again, if you have to start arguing that with somebody at the council, with somebody at the court, with a judge, with whatever, is it worth your time when you could make that money back with one rent-to-rent deal in 1 month? Is it worth your time to worry about not having it? Is it worth your time to argue with people about why you don't have it, instead of just getting it set up? It's good business practice. It helps make everybody feel more comfortable, so you can tell your landlords, look, I've got this client money protection thing, you're protected. You can tell your tenants, look, I've got this client money protection thing, you're protected. So just think about it that way. This is a business cost that you have. You've got other business investment costs that you have to pay upfront to get your business ready, just like any other business has. This is just one of those costs. Now, the client money protection companies are not the greatest. Now, this law just came in. As of right now, I think there's only 5 different companies that you can sign up with to get client money protection. There's 2 that anybody can join, and the other 3 you have to join a membership body in order to join their scheme. Oh my gosh, it's been an absolute nightmare. I don't have time to go into that now. Of basically, their admin systems are crap. They don't really know what they're doing. Their applications are a nightmare. The whole process is crap. So if you're just getting started, it's going to be a lot easier for you to set this up versus if you have already started and you've collected some money, then this makes it 100 times harder for you. So set it up as soon as possible, because if you haven't collected any deposits yet, then you don't have to send all your bank statements and all of that crap to the companies. You can just say, I'm a new business, I'm just getting started, and it's actually cheaper for you and it's easier. Whereas once you've started collecting tenant money, deposits, etc., then you've got to start giving them all your bank statements. You're going to have to get audited. It just makes it a lot harder. So that is my thoughts on client money protection. This has been a big topic for 2019. It's all very confusing because, of course, the legislation isn't very specific about what has to happen. The companies that are signed up to be able to do client money protection are not very good and not very well organized, just like deposit companies are, because they don't have to be, because there's only 3 to choose from, or in client money protection case, there's only 5 to choose from. So they don't really have to be very competitive, and they don't have to make your life easy because they don't really have any competition. So it's a little bit tricky to get going, but I suggest you register as soon as possible and just get it done and just do it. So hopefully you found that useful. This is my last video before the holidays. Next Wednesday is actually Christmas, so I will not be coming on live on Christmas. But don't worry, you've got loads of ways to keep learning with me. Make sure you're signed up for my Business Booster package, my emails. We've got, what is it, 5 or 6 more days, 7 more days, I guess, 6, whatever, of emails that are coming out. I've got some really great special offers that are coming in the lead up to Christmas. And then I've also got a 12 days of Christmas super special, basically this little free bonus for you, where I'm going to do release a couple videos starting on Christmas Day. So make sure you are signed up for all of that. You can go to renttorentacademy.co.uk, get yourself signed up on my mailing list, and you will get those emails. You will get all the free offers. You'll get all the free videos. And yeah, I will see you in the new year, I guess. Will be my next video, will be on New Year's Day. So be back here New Year's Day. Have a wonderful holiday period, and I will see you in 2020.